Air Force One, the call sign for the aircraft carrying the President of the United States, is a national symbol and one of the leader's most secretive assets. Many aircraft have been part of the selective group of aircraft since the post-war period, but the better-known one is the VC-25, a heavily modified version of a Boeing 747 airliner. Whenever the President travels, whether overseas or across the country, he uses his high-tech deluxe jumbo jet. The aircraft has even flown presidents for one last time before they passed away. However, after the September 11th attacks, the President's ultimate plane showed that it was much more than a flying office when it became a mobile bunker when all ground positions were vulnerable to a massive attack. After that, many have wondered what features would potentially help Air Force One overcome a nuclear attack, and what the service is willing to do to protect one of the most influential figures in the world. Air restrictions. Up until World War II, the President of the United States rarely traveled far from the Oval Office. Visiting other nations was simply out of the picture, as the long voyage would cut him from all government institutions. However, the advances in air travel eventually caught up with the necessary requirements and made it feasible to move the President around the globe and return him in shorter amounts of time. Official presidential aircraft have also been witnesses to some of the most important events in history. In 1943, Franklin Delano Roosevelt became the first U.S. president to take to the skies, and he famously arrived at a wartime conference in Casablanca aboard a Boeing 314 Clipper flying boat. Soon, the use of military aircraft for presidential use became a common practice when the newly formed Air Force selected a consolidated B-24 Liberator bomber configured for civilian operation. After a similar model crashed under strange circumstances, the Secret Service decided it wasn't a safe enough plane for the most important person in the nation. Instead, Roosevelt was awarded a modified C-54 Skymaster, nicknamed the Sacred Cow, complete with sleeping quarters, a radio telephone, and an elevator. The wheelchair-bound president used the aircraft for many essential operations, including the historic Yalta Conference, in which the Allies met to discuss the post-war reorganization of Germany and the rest of Europe. Official business. After the war was over, President Harry S. Truman replaced it with a modified DC-6, dubbed the Independence, complete with patriotic decoration. By the time the mid-'80s arrived, a pair of Boeing C-137 Stratoliner VIP transport aircraft, derived from the Boeing 707 jet, had been used as the presidential aircraft of choice for more than 2 decades. With these 2 aircraft, the Air Force and Secret Service began to use the radio call designation Air Force One during Dwight D. Eisenhower's administration. When John F. Kennedy took over, the 707s received an aesthetic redesign, a blue and white paint scheme that is still used today. The aircraft also have the words United States of America on their fuselage and the American flag painted on the vertical stabilizer. In addition, Air Force One flew Kennedy to Dallas on November 22, 1963, and brought Kennedy's body back later that afternoon. On that fateful day's return flight, former Vice President Lyndon Johnson was sworn in as president. However, after more than 20 years, the United States Air Force began the search for an official replacement in 1985. In their request for proposal, the service required the selected aircraft to have at least 3 engines and an unrefueled range of 6,000 miles at the least. After going head-to-head with McDonnell Douglas's DC-10 selection, the Boeing entry was the eventual winner. The company submitted a modified 747 wide-body airliner. The construction of the modified 747s began during the 2-term presidency of Ronald Reagan, and they were completed in 1986, flying for the first time the following year. Still, interior wiring issues further delayed the delivery, and the first VC-25 aircraft was ready in 1990, just as George H.W. Bush's administration began. Mysteries abound. The United States Air Force's Boeing VC-25 is a military version of the civilian Boeing 747 airliner, and it is used for presidential transport and is known as Air Force One. Only 2 examples of this highly modified aircraft type are in service, with tail numbers 28,000 and 29,000. Such aircraft can accommodate over 70 passengers and cost about $325 million each. In addition, Air Force One is capable of flying 7,800 miles, about 1/3 of the entire distance around the world, without the need to refuel. For all that is known about it, Air Force One is still one of the most mysterious aircraft in the world, with a certain mythic quality, and the Air Force has been careful to conceal specific details of the VC-25's layout. And while several sources have published general descriptions of the aircraft's components, no one knows much about it. Even visiting politicians and journalists aren't allowed inside the most secretive parts of the plane. Still, just like a regular Boeing 747, the VC-25 has 2 main decks and a cargo area, but its 4,000 square feet of floor space has been rearranged for presidential necessities. Inside Air Force One. The aircraft's front section is called the White House, in reference to the president's official residence. Meanwhile, the executive suite includes sleeping quarters, a lavatory, a shower, and a private office that works as an airborne Oval Office. If necessary, the president can even address the nation from inside the aircraft, a capability added after the September 11th attacks. The aircraft also contains a conference room for meetings with staff while in the air. The VC-25 aircraft has a considerable amount of fully equipped telecommunication systems, including 19 televisions, almost 100 telephones, and other items such as fax and data communication facilities. The elusive Air Force One also has a medical annex, a fold-out operating table, emergency medical supplies, a well-stocked pharmacy, a doctor, and a nurse. The remarkable aircraft can even be used by certain people other than the president, but only in particular circumstances. It can sometimes serve as transport for the United States Vice President, for which the callsign Air Force 2 is used. Moreover, an outgoing president is provided transportation aboard one of the VC-25 aircraft to his or her home destination. However, this specific flight does not use the Air Force One callsign, as it is not carrying the president in office. Nuclear readiness. The VC-25A replaced the military version of the Boeing 707 as the mainstay of the President's Air Force One fleet, and every single flight is classified as a military operation and handled as such. The pair is operated by the Presidential Airlift Group, part of the United States Air Force's Air Mobility Command's 89th Airlift Wing, based at Andrews Air Force Base in Maryland. Before every operation, Air Force One is carefully inspected, as well as the runways it is supposed to take off and land on. For protection, all the small arms not in possession of the Secret Service aboard the VC-25 are stowed away in locked compartments, each with a different lock for added security. When it's time to take to the skies, the Marine One helicopter brings the president to Andrews Air Force Base. During this time, a large number of specialized teams all across the base keep an eye on any unauthorized aircraft or suspicious activity in the area. They are also authorized to shoot on sight. In advance of the landing, the Air Force crew sends C-141 Starlifters with the president's motorcade to the specific destination. The VC-25 is also ready should a massive nuclear attack occur. The aircraft can be operated as a military command center, and recent operational modifications include even more aerial refueling capabilities and adequate countermeasures against anti-aircraft missiles. Moreover, all the wiring inside the aircraft is covered with heavy shielding for added protection, including from nuclear electromagnetic pulses. Finally, Air Force One also has electronic countermeasures and is able to jam enemy radars, has flares to avoid heat-seeking missiles, and chaff to avoid radar-guided missiles. Still, most of the VC-25's main capabilities are classified for security reasons. Delayed replacement. The The VC-25s have a long operational history, and as they continue to age, they are becoming more expensive to operate. Today, the Boeing 747 airliner is no longer used by the United States for commercial purposes, and the only remaining countries flying the model are Iran, Nigeria, and Pakistan. As older models, the cost of upkeep keeps rising as well. In 2013, Time magazine reported that the cost of operation of the Air Force One VC-25 was $161,591 per hour. However, according to 2022 estimates, the price tag has risen to over $177,000. Early press coverage suggested that the Air Force's Air Mobility Command was considering the Boeing 747-8 and the Airbus A380 as potential replacements, and the former was officially chosen in 2015. On February 27, 2018, President Donald Trump announced a $3.9 billion agreement with Boeing to modify the two 747-8s to be retrofitted with telecommunications and security equipment to increase their security level. The first modified aircraft was due in 2024, but these plans were heavily delayed by the pandemic and supply chain shortages. In July of 2022, the Pentagon officially approved a new schedule for the next-generation Air Force One aircraft, and recent estimates now project that Boeing will deliver the first VC-25B anywhere between early 2027 and 2028. Thank you for watching Dark Skies. Please hit the like button if you enjoyed our video, and stay tuned for more videos every week. Also, subscribe to this and all our Dark Documentaries channels for more exciting historical content, and hit the bell icon to be notified of our newest videos.